Good Friday afternoon. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside. Come inside. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you for this Feel Good Friday, Red Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Thank you again so much for joining us. We've got plenty to get to today, plenty on the Kansas City Chiefs. They will take on the depleted, bombed out Houston Texans. Shout out to Silky Johnson. They have nobody who is ready to go in this game. Nobody. Dameon Pierce, their stud rookie running back, out. Best receiver, Brandon Cooks, out. Number 2 receiver, Nico Collins, out. Starting corners, out.
Who's lining up at wide receiver for the Texans on Sunday? Well, guess what? It's you.
It might as well be. I could run a slant. Well, no. I told Jake the other day, my best route would be the old David Beatty wide receiver screen, catch the pass, and then just dive forward before getting tackled for like a yard and a half. That would be my go-to route if I played in the NFL. But on a serious note, we will get to our keys to the game for the Chiefs and the Texans coming up here in just a matter of moments. We'll also talk more about the game coming up later on this hour when we talk to Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. Get his take on what should be a game that the Chiefs can pull away easily from coming up on Sunday at noon. Also this hour, we'll play some Change My Mind. That's coming up here in about 15 to 20 minutes. Later on in the show today, we've got plenty of college sports to get to. We've got our weekly football picks. We've got enough bowl games this week. And Jake, I don't want to say he bent the rules, but Jake also found a way to get a non-bowl game pick in. We didn't have a rule about FCS games, so Jake picked an FCS game, and they're in the playoffs, they're in the national semis, so I figured, well, I publish this every week, and I didn't have a rule, so I'll allow it. I had executive privilege on that one.
We didn't tell him he couldn't.
Exactly, and we all know, having lived, in the real world for any amount of time, if there's no rule about it, someone will take advantage of it. So there you go. But we'll get to our picks. We've got rapid-fire bowl game picks for tomorrow. One bowl game's going on right now. It's the Cure Bowl down in Orlando. UTSA, the Roadrunners, Meep taking on Troy. We already had one bowl game finish. It was a great one down in the Bahamas. The Bahamas Bowl, UAB beating Miami, Ohio today. But we'll pick this weekend's bowl games as well. Plus, college hoops to get to. KU Indiana is tomorrow. One of the biggest non-conference games on the schedule anywhere in college basketball this year. Blue Blood versus Blue Blood at Allen Fieldhouse. We will be talking about that game. Also, we'll get a note on K-State versus Nebraska coming up. And some news from K-State's bowl game as well. They're not facing a depleted Alabama team. In fact, the Crimson Tide's going to come out in full force for the Sugar Bowl. So we'll get to that all coming up later on in the show today. We'll also look ahead to the NFL weekend. We've got What Is Wrong With You, our 580 Sports Talk headlines, and we are out of here. I might have misspoke earlier, but we're out of here at 5:30 today. We've got High School Hoops, our 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader, the final one for calendar year 2022. It's coming up tonight, 5:30 pregame, 5:45 girls game tip-off between Seaman and DeSoto. Myself and Larry Latimer will be on the call tonight here on 580 WIBW. Those two games in the doubleheader will feature number 2 in the state versus number 6 in the state in Class 5A for the girls. And then the boys game, it just so happens to be a rematch of the state championship game from 9 months ago. Almost exactly 9 months ago, in fact. So we are super excited for that tonight. Obviously, a very busy sports day coming up here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. You are welcome to be a part of the show on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, as always. That's 785-272-WIBW. And you can chime in on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube channel. So you can chime in and let us know whatever you are thinking about anything we are talking about on the show today. And we do have, as I mentioned, plenty to get to. First things first, Dan, let's get to our Chiefs versus Texans keys to the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll get our big Chief and cover picks coming up here in just a moment. I'll go first, and my first key is not necessarily a must-have to win the game, but it is something that I would like to be able to see. We've talked ad nauseum, really the last couple of days, but all week, really a few weeks now, about how the Chiefs just cannot take the ball away. They do not record takeaways very often. They have a surprisingly narrow turnover margin on the season, given, how efficient Patrick Mahomes and the offense usually are. if you were going to take the ball away against anyone, it should be in a game like this. The Texans do not have their best receiver, Brandon Cooks. He is out. Their second best receiver, Nico Collins, he has also been ruled out for the game. Their best offensive threat, rookie running back Dameon Pierce, he is not going to play this weekend, although we already knew that going into this week. They also run a 2-quarterback system, and both of them suck. Neither of them is any good. The Mills Mafia, unfortunately, has gotten dysentery and has died. It's over. It's over for Davis Mills.
And Jeff Driscoll is the other guy.
How is he still around?
That is a great question.
Jeff Driscoll wasn't all that great in college.
No.
He really wasn't.
And this is brand new stuff from Houston. They didn't start doing this until last week against Dallas. So there's film on this now. To whatever extent it caught the Cowboys off guard last week, now there's film. So I don't expect there to be similar effectiveness for the Jeff Driscoll package.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you on that. I can't. Like, that's truly, well, why not?
We've got to find some snaps for Jeff Driscoll, is the thing that an NFL team is saying in the year of our Lord 2022.
This reminds me, I don't know if you have ever read Jeff Pearlman's book on the USFL, Football for a Buck. Phenomenal book. I really, really enjoyed reading that book.
Big Jeff Pearlman fan.
Yeah, tremendous writer. So he had, this book about the USFL. There's all sorts of fun anecdotes and stories saying, well, let's just try playing with 2 quarterbacks. That sounds like something that happened in 1984 in the USFL. Like the Houston Gamblers just said, Jim Kelly's hurt. We don't really have any other options. So let's just play 2 quarterbacks and see how it goes.
We're 17.5-point dogs. Let's see if we maybe can't use this as a bit of a gimmick to maybe throw Dallas off. And, to an extent it worked. I mean, they were a yard away from, or 2 yards away from winning the game. All they have to do is not miscommunicate on 4th and goal from the 2, which is what clearly happened on the final offensive play for the Texans on that drive. If they run it clean, they score, they take a 2-score lead with 3 minutes left. That probably holds up. So they were really close. The gimmick, to the extent that it was necessary, helped the Texans stay in that game. Almost helped them beat a team that was favored by even more than the Chiefs are going to be favored tomorrow.
We have a comment here. A couple of comments from our guy Matt on the YouTube comments section. Sports on 580 on YouTube is where you can find us. If KC overlooks the Texans like Dallas did, they're in for a fight. Dallas should have lost last week.
Yeah.
The Chiefs should have blown out the Broncos last week, but let them back into the game. So, I think the fact that both of those things happened 1 week ago is going to lead to a calamity in Houston.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. The Chiefs will be on high alert for 2 separate reasons. Number one, they will be a team fully aware of what happens if they play with their food, and they will feel like this Texans team is not food that can be played with because of what they did against Dallas last week. I agree with you completely. If Houston were coming off of like a 30-point loss to Dallas last week, then I'd be a little bit more concerned about the trap game and the lack of focus. And, hey, they're an NFL team. They practice too, that whole thing. But I think the fact that both of those things happen make it very unlikely that we're going to see the Chiefs team drop their guard and not respect this team, or give them respect commiserate to their record, which again is 1-11-1.
So again, to circle back to the original key to the game, take the ball away. You got 2 crappy quarterbacks, no one to hand the ball off to. Rex Burkhead, there's RB1 for the Texans this week. They've got nobody to throw the ball to. Their offensive line has one good piece, and it's banged up as well. Take the ball away in this game. Prove to us that you are actually able to record a turnover, please. You don't need one to win, but if you can't do it against Houston, then I'm already almost there, but I will have officially said, okay, they can't do it. And we should not at any point ask for it because it just can't happen.
So my first key to the game is the opposite point to what you are making, and that is Chiefs have to take care of the football. They have been far too careless with the football, particularly against teams that there's no reason they should be turning the ball over against in games that they have pretty well in hand. They started turning the ball over against Denver. That gave the Broncos life. That made that into more of a game than it had any right to be. They turned the ball over in the end zone. Mahomes threw the pick against the Rams, kept the Rams in the game longer than they had any right to be in that game. Jacksonville was the same thing. Mahomes threw 2 picks in the Jacksonville game. That ended up being a 10-point Chiefs win, but again, closer than it needed to be, closer than it had any right to be. I expect that given the disparity in talent and health that you're going to see on the field on Sunday, that could lead to a very conservative game plan for the Chiefs.
Fair.
I think they're going to probably run the ball quite a bit if they're able to do so effectively, and there's no reason that you would expect that they couldn't run the ball. The Texans defense is not super stingy against the run or anything. So I think it might be a conservative Mahomes game plan in some ways, but just better decisions with the football. Lock the rock. Don't throw it to the other team. If you got a 0 in the turnover department at the end of the game, that should mean that they have won comfortably and that Mahomes maybe even watches the fourth quarter of it from the sideline.
I don't remember if I said this on the air the other day or if I was just talking to you during a commercial break, but I believe the Chiefs are one of just a handful of teams in the league, 4 or 5 of them, that have not played a backup quarterback at any point this year, which is wild.
I think you did say that on the air.
So this is the game to get Chad Henne in the mix. Put him out there. Let him play the fourth quarter. My second key is effectively just get out of Dodge. By the way, have you ever seen Dodge City with Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland?
No, never seen the movie. No.
Good film, fun film. Watched it in my History of the People of Kansas class when I was in college.
I've broadcast a high school basketball game at Dodge City High School.
There you go.
Almost the same thing.
Well, many people I feel like around the United States probably don't know where that phrase came from. It came from Dodge City, Kansas. Anyway, get out of Dodge this weekend. Just be done with this. Do not play with your food. Do not mess around. Put this game out of reach at halftime. They could not do that last week against Denver. They let the Broncos seep back into the contest late in the second quarter. Don't let that happen this week. Make it 27-0, 28-3. Well, most dangerously in football, but you know what I mean. Blowout kind of territory going into the half. Let Mahomes get to 3 touchdown passes or 300 yards or some fun statistical benchmark, and then put him on the bench. Let Isaiah Pacheco just run. Give him 20-plus carries in this game. He's going to be fine. The Texans, by the way, and we'll get to more on Pacheco here in a moment in our big Chief picks, they've given up the most big 10-plus yards run plays of any team in the NFL this year, 62 of them. The way Isaiah Pacheco runs, that aggressive, raging bull kind of way he runs, he should be able to get over 100 yards in this game if you give him enough opportunities. So put the game out of reach with the passing game. Let Mahomes rest. Let Kelsey rest at the end of the game. We should see plenty of Gray and Fortson, and Justin Watson should play every snap in the fourth quarter. And put Edwards-Helaire out. Well, not Edwards-Helaire, but
Ronald Jones.
Yeah, put him out there. Anything that it takes to just give those guys some rest. Put this game out of its misery. This game should be over by 2:45 p.m. So the fourth quarter should take 25 minutes. Just get it over with.
By the way, a texter on from the 785 on the Big O Tires text line pointed this out. I don't know where you found the stat about Chiefs not using a backup quarterback. Actually have. Chad Henne's appeared in 2 games this year. Now, he hasn't completed a pass. Maybe that's where the stat comes from. Henne is 0 for 2 through the air this season.
Maybe that is it.
But he did. I want to say he kneeled out the clock against Arizona, and then he came in the San Francisco game.
I was going to say maybe that's just an old stat from before the 49ers game, but that would have been incorrect anyway, because, yeah, you're right. He did kneel out the Cardinals game.
No, it wasn't the Cardinals game. Was it the Tampa Bay game that he kneeled out? It was one of those games.
Well, we can find out here. No, it was Arizona and San Francisco.
It was Arizona. Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at the box score. I couldn't find him. Yeah.
That might have been an old stat anyway, but I guess it wouldn't have been correct regardless. So maybe it was completed a pass. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Either way, Chad Henne has played all of 4 snaps all year.
Yeah. And tip of the cap to the text line for keeping us honest.
Yeah, good
shout out to the Big O Tires text line. It's a good pull. Anyway, second key to the game for me is I want to see the position group that I thought had the hardest time against the Broncos bounce back this week. And that's the secondary, but the cornerbacks in particular. These rookies should match up really, really well with the Texans receivers. In fact, for you folks out there, a little home version of a game that Brendan and I were playing in the bullpen getting ready to do the show today. Name the Texans receivers. Nico Collins is out. Brandon Cooks is out. The Texans have 3 healthy wide receivers. Chris Moore who's a real person, 29 years old, out of the University of Cincinnati. He caught 10 passes last week for 124 yards. It made him the Texans' leading receiver. Their second leading receiver in the game was Amari Rodgers, your favorite Green Bay Packer of all time, with the first name starting with A and the last name Rodgers.
See, again, great opportunity to take the ball away because he has 5 fumbles. He has the most fumbles of any player in the NFL that's not a quarterback.
The third leading receiver for the Texans, a former first-round pick, gentleman by the name of Philip Dorsett, who has previously played with the Colts, I believe, New England, and briefly with Seattle last year. Appeared in 2 games, caught 1 pass for 3 yards. Also suited up for 1 game for the Jags last year, and I had completely forgotten that happened. But that's the wide receiver core that either Davis Mills or Jeff Driscoll are going to be throwing to. So I foresee a lot of man coverage, make these guys prove they can get open against man. I want to see these young corners have a better game, a bounce back game, communicate better on the back end. I think communication was a bit of a problem really the last couple of weeks. You go back to the Cincinnati game. Communication on the back end has been an issue that led to one of Jerry Jeudy's touchdowns last week where Trent McDuffie just followed the wrong guy. He and Josh Williams went to the same place, and that left Jeudy wide open for the, I think that was the shortest of the 2 touchdown passes that Wilson threw to Jeudy late in the first half. So bounce back game from the corners, maybe an impact for the safeties, chance to maybe pick a pass off and get us talking about the group of Justin Reed, Juan Thornhill, and Brian Cook in a positive manner coming out of this one.
Let's get to our big Chief picks. I already telegraphed mine. I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. I feel like this is the sort of game where you can give him the ball, just as long as you don't fumble it, you can run out the clock. Give him 20 to 25 carries in this game. This feels like the kind of game he should absolutely be able to go over 100 yards. Again, given how many big run plays Houston has given up this year, I think as long as you can put it out of reach, he can be your bell cow for the majority of the second half. Hell, maybe even the first half. Maybe this ends up being a game like the couple against Buffalo and Houston it actually was back in Clyde's first year, where, hey, we would love to throw the ball, but we don't need to because they legitimately just can't tackle. So we'll just keep handing it off to you. Maybe this is that kind of game. I think he puts up big numbers, and I think the Chiefs come away with the big win.
So I'm going with Juju Smith-Schuster as my big Chief. I think he's going to get a bulk of the targets. I think that the safety play for the Texans with Desmond King and Jalen Petrie is pretty good. And I imagine they'll be paying all kinds of attention to Travis Kelce. I think that makes Juju the target for the big day out of the Chiefs pass catchers. And I do think that they will have a pretty big day through the air. The cornerbacks for Houston, it's not really a very inspiring bunch, to say the absolute least about them. Steven Nelson is not going to play. The other gentleman, Derek Stingley, the rookie, he is also out. So your cornerbacks that are going to see time, you've got not Desmond King. Jonathan Owens is the safety. Desmond King's going to play a little bit more corner.
Slot corner, yeah.
Yeah. Desmond King is going to be out there. Tavierre Thomas and former Chief Tremont Smith, who got the first 2 interceptions of his career in the Dallas game. He picked off Dak Prescott twice. Those were the first interceptions of Tremont Smith's career. Did you remember the illustrious Chiefs career of Tremont Smith?
I did. He
was the kick returner for the 2018 team.
They dumped him. The Packers signed him, and he lasted like 3 games in Green Bay. I do remember Tremont Smith. He was a draft pick that year. That was Veach's first class.
Yeah, 6th round pick. So anyhow, it's not a great collection of corners, and I think Juju is going to be able to get open and have a pretty solid day, something like, 7 or 8 catches, close to 100 yards and a touchdown. And I'm not just saying that because I need that for my fantasy playoffs too, but I would like it.
What's your seed in the playoffs?
Number 1 with a bull. I went 13-1, which means
wow.
I'm definitely losing this week.
All right, let's get to our winner and cover picks for the week. My number is too small. I've got the Chiefs to win, the Chiefs to cover the spread and the over. I think my deficit's too small. I only have it at 18 points. 34-16 is what I put. Then knowing even more dudes were out as of just before the show, I think this is going to be a runaway for the Chiefs. But win, cover, over for the Chiefs.
I am going to go with the same win, cover, and over. I have a more lopsided final score. I'm going 38-13.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs just take care of business, take better care of the football. I mean, they scored 34 on Denver despite 3 turnovers last week. So I think they can put 38 on the Texans, no problem, if they take care of the ball. And I think they'll be there probably midway through the third quarter. and take the throttle off a little bit. So 38-13 Chiefs is the pick.
Let us know your Chiefs picks. You can hit us up on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or you can hit us up on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Speaking of the YouTube comments, we're going to take a quick break. We've got one from Matt about Travis Kelce and Tony Gonzalez. We're going to talk about that coming up next in a round of Change My Mind. Matt Derrick will also join us this hour. It's all coming up here on this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brenton and Dan here with you, just getting started on this Friday, December 16th edition of 580 Sports Talk. We got a prediction in from Mark in the YouTube comments. Chiefs 31, Texans 15. So that would be a win, a cover, but the under, I believe, at 46 points.
A lot of field goals, or 3 field goals, a touchdown, a failed 2-pointer, which that feels likely.
Yes, it's certainly possible there. Lots of news around the world of sports today. We've got some hot stove news. A former Royal just signed a long-term deal with a Royals divisional rival, Andrew Benintendi. 5 years, $75 million to the Chicago White Sox.
I'm a little surprised Andrew Benintendi is a $15 million a year player, but I think that the White Sox can overpay for they need to patch some holes in their lineup and get a little better defensively, so they never play Eloy Jimenez in the outfield again.
Yeah, right.
And Benintendi will help them. I mean, he'll make them better. I don't know if he's $15 million worth of ball player, but he'll be valuable for them as an upgrade out there in the corner.
So we'll get to some hot stove later on. We will be talking plenty of college basketball coming up next hour. We've got bowl picks, a lot of other news from around the world of sports, including in K-State's bowl game. That's all coming up throughout the day here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt Derrick is going to join us in just a few minutes for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. But right now, let's play a little round of Change My Mind. And here's what I've got for you, Dan, inspired by a question in the YouTube comment section on YouTube. Do you see Travis Kelce eclipsing Tony Gonzalez and his total yardage before the end of his career, and how soon does he do it? So I will turn that into this Change My Mind question or statement. Travis Kelce will not surpass Tony Gonzalez's career yardage record. He is just over 5,000 yards away. I believe 5,027 before the end of his career. He will not do it.
5,000 yards. The thing that makes me think that he can do it is the durability that he has shown over the course of his career. Like, Travis Kelce's not going to do this forever, even though it feels like he can, but he has been remarkably durable. And that gives him a chance, I think, to be productive into he's 33. I think he can be productive into his mid 30s, perhaps even into his late 30s in a similar fashion to Tony Gonzalez, who was a great player into his mid to late 30s. 5,000 yards. I mean, you're asking for, 1,000 yards a season, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. It might start to tail off for him in such a way that he can't quite catch Tony G. But if anybody's ever going to do it, I think it's probably Travis Kelce.
I would agree with that part of the statement. It's going to be tough. Like, Tony G only played till he was 37. He retired after his age 37 season. Antonio Gates played till he was 38. Now, I know Gates was a much different kind of player. He was maybe the best red zone weapon of all time. He really was. He was never a stretch the field kind of tight end. I mean, he only had 2,000-yard seasons in his career. That's actually kind of crazy for Antonio Gates. But that's a hard position to play really late into your career at. I mean, it's just hard to play that long because you take a beating. Travis Kelce, especially in the last 2 or 3 seasons, has taken a beating at that position, but has been so durable, has stayed out there. 5,000 yards is going to be tough, man. I mean, he puts up incredible stats every single year. The streak of 1,000-yard seasons, which is at 7 at this point? Whatever it is. I mean, it's truly incredible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
7, I believe.
Yeah, 7. He's just over 1,000 for this season. So he's going to have one of his highest yardage totals ever this year. And he's already got his highest touchdown total this year. So this will be one of the best years of his career.
He's got the extra game.
Yes, does have the extra game. I mean, can he get 4 more 1,000-ish yard seasons? I don't know. That's going to be really tough. I will just play the probability and say no. But if anyone could do it, you're right. It would be Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, Gonzalez at 37 had 859 receiving yards. At 36,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, at 36 he had 930. So from 34 to 37 until he was done, the last 4 seasons of his career, Gonzalez put up 3,320 yards. So if Kelce were to do that over 4 seasons after this one, that would still put him 2,000 yards short. So, like, that's
crazy.
Yeah.
Tells you how incredible Gonzalez's career was.
Yeah, that is a fact.
What do you have for this week?
So, you mentioned Andrew Benintendi signing with the White Sox. Minnesota Twins also made a signing of a position player within the hour. Joey Gallo headed to Minnesota on a 1-year prove-it deal worth $11 million. The Royals should not sign a position player free agent. Change my mind.
They should not sign a position player free agent. I don't think the Royals have enough depth at the major league level offensively to be saying there's no need for X, Y, or Z at this point. Like, do the young guys need to be out there? Obviously. I mean, Bobby Witt is among your best players. Same with Melendez. Same with Pasquantino. Probably the same with Prado, too. At the very least, you have to make sure that he gets out there. And Salvi's going to catch your DH, obviously. But outside of that, I mean, who's going to play third this year? Is it going to be Witt? Is it going to be Modest? Like, what's the plan there? I think there's enough positions where you don't really know exactly what the plan is, or you don't have a good enough plan for you to turn your nose up and say, nah, we don't need a position player at this point. So I would say it is still worthwhile. You need a little bit more firepower. I just don't think the roster is deep enough to say no to any sort of position player.
Could be Nate Eaton at third. Could also be
That's true.
Hunter Dozier at third, which I know isn't very appealing. We had a texter from the 913 on the Big O Tires text line ask about Hunter Dozier's contract. He's not making Andrew Benintendi money, I can tell you that. He's got 2 more years left on his extension that he signed, and those 2 years are worth $16.75 million. So he is roughly an $8 million a year player. $8 and change $million player. There's a $10 million team option for 2025. That, spoiler alert, unless something changes dramatically, they're not picking that up. So, but yeah, so he's basically making about half of what Benintendi is making per year. I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse about Hunter Dozier, who was truly one of the worst everyday players in Major League Baseball last year.
Yep.
But no, for me, if you're going to say, hey, we need to evaluate our young pitching, that's fine, but you should really want to evaluate your young players. And that means don't put up any roadblocks that are going to take at bats from Nate Eaton or Michael Massey or Drew Waters, or the outfield's kind of crowded. Like Edward Olivares needs to play, and Nate Eaton needs to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously Witt's going to play. Mondesi's going to be on the team. Maybe the 25 days he's healthy, play him at short and Witt to third. I still think Bobby Witt Jr. is a better third baseman in the long run than he is a shortstop. Not a knock, just saying. So, yeah.
I mean, if that's your short or your third baseman, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'd take that too.
Yeah. For me, if you're going to put any more resources towards filling some holes in the big league roster, it should be starting pitching in the bullpen.
We've got to take a quick timeout. Matt Derrick will join us next here on 580 Sports Talk.
to play like that?
His name is Matt.
Are you ready?
My name is Matt.
Let's go.
His name is Matt Derrick. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than absolutely anybody over at ChiefsDigest.com. Head to the website, find all the phenomenal coverage of your Kansas City Chiefs. You can find Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. And he joins us every Friday at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. How are you, Matt? How are you doing?
I am doing pretty well. I am trying to fight the holiday traffic home. I'm against holiday traffic, but there's nothing I can do about it.
No, that is unfortunately one of those evils we all must deal with. Ironically, an evil of life. The Houston Texans, are they more Ponzi scheme or football team at this point?
That's a real good question. I was gonna ask you guys if you're fired up for this, because I've been trying to find a way to get myself excited about this game all week, and I have failed.
I mean, I'm excited because the Chiefs should win, and that usually makes our jobs easier come Monday and Tuesday next week.
Makes my wife happy. She's a Chiefs fan. She likes it when they win.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of that, you're playing a team that's missing its 3 best offensive weapons. It has a 2-quarterback system, both heads of which stink. Their defense is depleted. Heck, even the guy on their team who doesn't like the Chiefs the most, Steven Nelson, isn't even playing. You don't even get that storyline in this game. So I'm with you, man. It's been kind of hard to get the energy levels up for this one.
Yeah, the Steven Nelson revenge game might have been a really good factor, but we don't get that. And then, I mean, the 2-quarterback system could really be interesting had they not already unveiled it last week and kind of put it out there. So not going to surprise anybody anymore. I feel like, I mean, this is a bad team that I feel like pulled out every single trick that they've got last week to try and get a win. It almost worked. I mean, but once everybody's seen your tricks, it's not going to work a second time. And I just don't know how many more tricks that team has. So you're right. I mean, this is a team that the worst thing that you can say, I think we maybe even talked about it last week with the Broncos. I mean, there's guys out there, at least on that team, looking for jobs next year. So you're going to get some effort from those guys. But this is a team going absolutely nowhere, nothing left. You're right. I mean, they're depleted, injuries. They have 2 quarterbacks, which means they have none. That really, they have 3 quarterbacks, which I think means they have less than none. There's nothing to get excited about this team, and I couldn't blame the Chiefs for not being excited about this game either.
So what is then the key to this game? I mean, I know, any given Sunday and all that, but we said earlier on, like, if the Texans had just gotten blown out, the Chiefs had just blown out the Broncos, maybe it's a little bit different. You have to worry that, okay, you actually have to stay focused for this game. But considering the Texans probably just burned up their last good effort of the year last week, the Chiefs got a scare from a bad team a week ago. I would imagine they're not going to allow Lovie Smith's group to fight back. So it feels from the very jump like this should be a blowout for Kansas City. Is there any specific key or factor that needs to be addressed to make sure it doesn't get into close game territory?
Well, I think last week it was the prime example of that. I mean, the Chiefs, jumped out to what, I don't think I necessarily expect them to be a 27-0 lead, but you get out to a 27-0 lead, you do expect to put the game away. And they had trouble finishing. Why? Because they turned the ball over 3 times. That to me, I think that if with a game like this, hey, the cliches. You have to respect the opponent. You can't take anybody for granted. All those things are cliches, but they are true. And I don't think that this team will do that. I don't think they did it last week against the Broncos. I think they just started making some mistakes. They weren't able to force the Broncos to make some similar mistakes. That's why that ended up being close. If the Chiefs, if they have a negative turnover margin in this game, I think it will take more than maybe being -2 or even -3 against the Texans. I think they need more help than that. But you want to protect the football. I think you'd like to finally see the defense feast on a team like this, create some turnovers, get another defensive score, something of that nature. Because you're right. This is a team that you should put down. And I don't think anybody is, I guess hardcore Chiefs fans would love them to just go out there and put them down 52-3 or something. That's unlikely. But I think you just like to see this team play fundamentally sound football, not make any mistakes, don't get anybody hurt, and move on. This is a game that they should just be workmanlike and business as usual. And I expect them to have some fun. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do that, and that could make this game a blowout. And if that's the case, so be it.
Our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider, presented by Herman's Meat Smokehouse of Topeka. Open Wednesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner. Go get a lunch at Herman's Meat Smokehouse. I had lunch there on Wednesday. Had some rib tips. It was awesome.
It smelled incredible.
Yeah, rib tips, potato salad, really good value at Herman's Meat and Smokehouse. Matt Derrick joins us every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk to talk Chiefs. And Matt, it does not look like Kadarius Toney is going to go on Sunday. He's been listed as questionable. The Chiefs really being careful with Toney and easing him back. They have returned or opened the window, the 21-day window for McCole Hardman, but he has not been activated yet. So it looks like another week off for McCole Hardman. What elements do you think the Chiefs offense is missing or are missing without those two and their skill sets in the lineup?
Yeah, I think the one thing that those two guys have in common is just the ability to stretch the field. And I'm not even talking about just vertically, but horizontally as well. Not that the Chiefs don't have guys right now with some speed that you can take advantage of. Sky Moore certainly is one of those guys. You can run some jet sweeps. You can the things that the Chiefs like to do. But I think those guys are particularly well suited. They both have speed and abundance. McCole Hardman is just so good at those things. I mean, he's very smooth. He's picked it up. He's got all the little tricks in his bag now that he can pull out on those plays, and it's been so effective. And look at how effective he was right before the injury. That's I think just one of the things. Sure, the Chiefs have other guys with plenty of speed, but just those two guys I think are their best two athletes on the offensive side with the football in space. And there's just an explosiveness and a big play and just a chunk play, two guys that you just don't have. And like I said, not that the other guys don't have similar capabilities, maybe even be able to make those plays in different ways, but those two guys give you an ability to stretch a defense vertically and horizontally that I just don't know that the other guys are as good at.
Is there, in your mind, a commonality to some of the mistakes, the turnovers that Patrick Mahomes has been responsible for the last few weeks? It's now 8 straight games that the Chiefs have turned the ball over on offense. I think half of those games, it's multiple turnovers, at least half. Is there a commonality to it, or is it just a little thing here or a little thing there that Mahomes knows he's got to make a better decision?
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter. I mean, I think it is just a little thing here and a little thing there. So I think one of the things about Mahomes is just that he knows in his mind the right thing to do, and he tries to do it. But I think at the same time, his instincts sometimes play against what he knows is the right thing to do. And that throw to the interception to Patrick Surtain, I think, is a great example of that. He said he was trying to just throw the football away, dirt it. That's the smart play there if there's nothing open. But his instincts are, hey, just get the ball there. Maybe just give your guy a chance to make a play, and the other guy can't. And I don't know that's what he's necessarily thinking in those split seconds, but it sometimes feels like that. And I know from listening to him and talking to him over the years that he just doesn't like to give away plays. That's the one and the biggest I think trait about him is that a ball thrown away is a missed opportunity. So he doesn't like to do that. He likes to try and take it at any advantage as possible. And and I was going back and listening to him on the Travis Kelce podcast a couple of weeks ago, taking another pass at that. And one of the things that really just struck out to me is just that turnovers bother him, bad turnovers bother him, but he really feels at the same time that you wouldn't have big plays sometimes without taking those chances. So, I feel like the turnovers with Mahomes, it's one of those things you're going to live with. And I think you're going to live with it because 9 times out of 10, it's not a turnover, it's a good play. And I think that's probably the case. And that's probably why you're not going to mind those turnovers. You're just going to hope they don't hurt you at the wrong time.
Is this the best place the Chiefs running game has been in a while, given how they were able to close out the Denver game with the ground game, that Pacheco seems to have seized the day as the top choice on the depth chart? McKinnon seems to have found and embraced his role. Is this as good as you felt about the Chiefs running game in some time?
They're getting there. I mean, I think the last time that I really felt good about the Chiefs run game and thought they were onto something was probably Clyde's rookie season before he got hurt. Those first maybe 5 or 6 games, aside from the fumble against the Ravens, I thought that he was cooking. I mean, I thought that he really looked like he was going to be everything that the Chiefs thought he could be. And then after the injury, just hasn't been quite the same. And the Chiefs' run game has been inconsistent since then. Yeah, I mean, last week's a good reason to believe that the Chiefs are onto something with this combo. Now, the question's going to be, to me, can that continue? You know, we've seen this team when it gets into the postseason kind of coalesce behind one guy. When they did it with Damian Williams, that worked out pretty well. It hasn't gone as well the last couple of seasons. So let's see if they can maximize the most out of this two-headed combo, because the trouble you can get into is when you're playing these two guys the way they're rotating them right now is just that you get too predictable. If Isaiah Pacheco's in there, you're going to run the football. If McKinnon's in there, you're throwing it. And that's a tip that the other team's going to use. So that's my only concern. I mean, you're going to have a little variety. You're going to have to trust, you're going to have to trust Pacheco to catch the ball at times. You're going to have to trust, McKinnon to maybe do a little power football at times. You do that and you keep teams off balance, then I think that they can continue to work this two-headed combo.
Just a couple more questions for Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider, joining us on this Friday afternoon here on 580 Sports Talk. Check Matt out on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course, check out ChiefsDigest.com. Speaking of having trust, Matt, in some other options, how much trust do you think this offense and the quarterback in particular have in some of the secondary and tertiary options right now? And that includes, mixing things up with the running backs, but that also includes Noah Gray, who's only getting, a couple targets a game, but has seemed to have made the most of it. Or, hey, can we trust that Kadarius Toney, when he gets healthy and gets in the game, is going to make the right play in a clutch situation, et cetera? How much trust in there in some of the, or Justin Watson, that's another name to bring up in this conversation. How much trust is there from quarterback and coaching staff in some of those lower down ancillary options to make plays if called upon in big moments against tougher competition?
That's a great question, because I truly thought earlier in the season that there was a lot of trust between Mahomes and this entire group of targets. I mean, you just saw that he seemed to be willing to target anybody and everybody at any time, and he was spreading the ball around pretty good. There's still some of that, but you almost starting to feel a little bit maybe like the end of the last couple of seasons when, it gets to crunch time. And now, the ball just seems to be going one of two ways. The last couple of years, it was Kelsey and Hill. Now it seems to be getting to be Kelsey and Juju. And I mean, those are two guys. I mean, it's definitely the trust, but I think this offense can, once again, it's better when there's a running mate, and I think Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy talked about it a little bit this week, that this offense was at its best when Sammy Watkins was playing well. And when Byron Pringles had some good games. I mean, when there's been other guys to step up and be, a trustworthy target for Mahomes. And, and that's what, I mean, MVS is the one that really kind of, boggles the mind, because he's the guy that I think had seemed to have such a great relationship with Mahomes early on. Seemed like there was a lot of trust there. But then he's had some games where he just kind of disappears. And maybe it's only one or two plays that he gets involved in. They need somebody else, and whether it's Hardman and Toney coming back to be a variety of those options, or they can truly trust those other guys in crunch time, it needs to be somebody. I think they need one more player to start stepping up. And I mean, it'd be great if it was multiple, and it'd be great if they go into the postseason and Mahomes is confidently targeting nine different guys a game, and he's completing multiple passes to multiple guys. But it's starting to feel a little bit like, once again, that once you get late in the season, it's kind of like narrowing down your bench on a basketball team. It kind of feels like Mahomes narrowed down his targets a little bit.
All right, Matt, we've got under a minute to go here. 2 rapid-fire questions for you. Number 1, do the Chiefs cover the 14-point spread?
It's going to be tough, so I am going to say no. I'm going to blame it on the defense, though.
I think that's certainly fair. The other one, non-Chiefs related, and I don't ask this to brag, have you recovered from last Saturday yet?
I went into that game with zero expectations, so I was not disappointed.
Fair.
They were Mets.
Exactly. I almost want to say they exceeded expectations. So.
Hey, I will say the crowd, even when that got out of hand pretty quickly, the crowd was into it the whole time. So I'll give them credit for that at the very least.
And props to KU fan. I mean, there was times that I thought that building seems really loud after KU does something. So.
We like to show out.
Presence.
Yeah, we like to show out. I think both sides of the rivalry know that well. Matt, as always, we appreciate the time. Go check Matt out on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course at ChiefsDigest.com. Enjoy the game Sunday, Matt. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Take care, everybody.
That is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. We'll take a break for the national and local news. Come back. College football, college basketball. What is wrong with you? All coming up next hour on 580 Sports Talk. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, just getting underway. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're off a little bit early today because of high school basketball, as we've got DeSoto at Seaman tonight, a girls-boys doubleheader. Girls will tip at 5:45. The boys will follow 15 minutes after. Pregame begins at 5:30 approximately, assuming no JV overtime today. And you'll be able to hear all the coverage right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Myself and Larry Latimer will be on the call of that one.
When I am elected president someday, on my first day in office, I will sign into law the No Overtime in Junior Varsity Games Act.
That's fair.
If you want to crown a winner, next basket wins. How about that?
Yeah, sudden death. We can do that.
Golden goal, except for basketball.
Yeah, just that I'd be fine with that. Just play untimed until a basket is scored.
Yeah.
It's 40-40. All right, next one wins. I'd be fine with that. I would totally be fine. No timeouts. No dead balls. You just keep playing. Goes into the crowd. Go pick it up. Bring it back. Let's go. Balls in play. Play
Half court. Just check it up if it goes out of bounds.
You're welcome to chime in on the show on anything you are thinking about in regard to what we're talking about today, either on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or on our YouTube feed. Sports on 580 WIBW is our YouTube channel. The comments section is wide open to you. Anything you want to share on this feel-good Friday afternoon. Coming up, we got a lot of college sports to get to. We'll get to some bowl game picks. We will talk KU versus Indiana. We'll get a note on K-State versus Nebraska as well. Very funny that Jake was accused of being a KU fan today. That was hilarious on Mic'd Up near the end of their show.
Old Jayhawk Jake at it again.
Yeah, notorious KU hater, Jake LeBond, as I've always called him. That is very funny. So we'll get to KU, K-State basketball, bowl game stuff as well. Obviously, some big news for K-State's bowl game. They will have to face Bryce Young. They will have to face Will Anderson. Reportedly, no one at Alabama is going to be opting out. So we'll talk more about that coming up later on in the show today. But before we get to the college sports news, Dan, we've got some big hot stove news.
We have some Royals news.
We do have Royals news.
We also have ex-Royals news that has to do with the Royals news. So,
and it's all very funny.
Yeah, so the Kansas City Royals designated reliever Wyatt Mills for assignment the other day when they were juggling their roster. I believe he was DFA'd when they signed Ryan Yarbrough. So Wyatt Mills was in that DFA limbo. Well, they found a taker for Wyatt Mills, the Boston Red Sox. And so the Royals traded Wyatt Mills, who, if that name is not ringing any bells for you, that's okay. A forgettable, fungible right-handed reliever. Traded to the Red Sox in exchange for a right-handed pitcher by the name of Jacob Wallace. The difference between the two, Wallace doesn't have to be on the 40-man roster, whereas Mills was on the 40-man roster. So Jacob Wallace, I'm just going to assume you're never going to need to know that name again. I'm not going to tell you anything about Jacob Wallace because I don't know anything about Jacob Wallace. That's not what makes this a story.
Major Houston Texans vibes.
Yes. What makes this a story is that in acquiring Wyatt Mills, the Red Sox needed to add him to their 40-man roster. But their 40-man roster is full. So they had to remove someone from their 40-man roster, and they did. And the person they removed from their 40-man roster is someone I'm guessing you do know quite well, a guy by the name of Eric Hosmer.
That is very funny.
Eric Hosmer, who, by the way, the Red Sox don't owe much more than $2 million over the next 3 years because when the Padres made that Juan Soto deal, Eric Hosmer went to Boston that same day as basically a make-weight. His contract for the next 3 years is for $39 million. Hosmer is scheduled to make $13 million for the next 3 seasons. $13 million a year for a one-win first baseman, which that player grows on trees. Hence why you'd be willing to designate one for assignment. Yep. The Padres are picking up, according to Baseball Reference, close to $37 million of the 39 still owed to Eric Hosmer. So if somebody wanted to go pick him up right now, they would owe him less than $1 million per season for the next 3 that he's under contract because the Padres are paying the rest of it. Life has come at Eric Hosmer extremely fast. What is funny is Hosmer is coming off of a season where he posted his best OPS plus in a full season since leaving Kansas City.
Second best.
In a full season.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I was looking at 2020. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he only played 38 games in the COVID year.
Yeah,
they
fake
were
year.
38 really good games.
But they were fake, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't real. Nothing that happened in 2020 was real.
So, I mean, he hasn't been outright bad. I mean, in San Diego, OPS plus of 103. He was not good in 14 games with Boston. It never took off. He had a higher on base than he did slugging while he was in Boston for 50 plate appearances. I don't think, and this is just sort of hearsay, but I don't believe he was very popular with his teammates in San Diego. I believe I had heard that at one point, that he was not like a clubhouse cancer, but also wasn't exactly a team leader.
Well, they very much brought him in to be that when they signed him. That was the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was what he was in Kansas City. He was very much that, and very much a guy that had a lot of respect in the Royals locker room, the championship winning teams. San Diego signed him to bring some of that to San Diego. And then the makeup of that locker room changed. They went from trying to be good to all of a sudden they were good. And they had even more prominent players on the roster than Eric Hosmer. I don't think Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer probably had a lot in common.
I would doubt it.
Other than playing in the World Baseball Classic. But I feel like those two personalities, pretty strong-willed, pretty big personalities. I would imagine there was a bit of clash in that locker room between Machado and Hosmer. And if there was, the locker room's going to side with the better player. And obviously that's not Eric Hosmer. So I don't do this. I don't bring this up to dance on Eric Hosmer's career grave. I think he's going to land somewhere. Like he makes a lot of sense.
He will.
He makes a lot of sense for a young team that might need a veteran to stand and play 140 games at first base and hit decently well, like be an average offensive player, a halfway decent defender. He has won 4 Gold Gloves.
Yep.
He'll probably end up in Oakland, somewhere like that.
That makes sense.
Oakland would make a lot of sense, I think.
Look, we're trying.
Yeah. Hey, look, we've added 4-time Gold Glover Eric Hosmer to our
sounds
We've
about right.
added world champion Eric Hosmer to our clubhouse.
Yeah.
Our team payroll is now $27.50 an hour. So, but it is just wild that life has come at Eric Hosmer very fast.
He went from signing that massive deal to DFA'd by a different team in a hurry. Man, that really is crazy. We will get to more from the baseball world, including another former Royal getting a big contract coming up later on in our 580 Sports Talk headlines today. Did want to get to some college stuff here. Let's start on the basketball front. KU versus Indiana is coming up tomorrow, 11 a.m. on ESPN2. I know there's bowl games. That game deserves more than ESPN2 at 11 a.m. I just firmly believe that. I do believe Dickie V is going to be on the call of that game, by the way. So I've mentioned my best friend before, Evan. We grew up together. We've been best friends since we were 7 years old. He grew up a huge Indiana fan. He ended up going to Wisconsin, but he grew up an Indiana fan. His parents met in law school at Indiana. His mother once told me that she listens to 3 podcasts, one from NPR, and 2 different Indiana basketball ones.
Love that.
She is obsessive. So I texted him this morning, and I said, hey, please wish your mom good luck for me tomorrow. Nothing personal, just business. Like, she's like my second mom. I mean, I've known her my whole life pretty much. And he says, of course, will do. Can't wait for it. We talked a little bit about the game. The quote he sends back from his mother reads, tell him he's a bigger person than I am, hoping to thrash the Jayhawks, but I still love Brendan. From Mrs. Boyd. So that's the kind of IU fans I have in my life. I am super, super excited for this game. I know Indiana has struggled a little bit recently. They've lost 2 of their last 3, including to Arizona. Arizona's really freaking good.
Yeah,
Arizona's a really good team.
Awesome. They also lost to Rutgers in that span, and the commonality in this stretch of difficulty is they have not had their freshman point guard, Jalen Hood-Schifino,
who it sounds like isn't going to play this weekend either.
He did practice yesterday, and the Indiana 24/7 sports page, that is Peegs.com, by the way, they are saying that there is some optimism that he could go.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know what that means. I don't know. I don't know that I'd put money on it one way or another, whether or not he's going to play. But Indiana and this matchup look very different if Hood-Schifino can go, because he's a big point guard. Mm-hmm. Not only is he a good point guard, he's a big point guard at 6'6", and that creates a matchup difficulty with DeJuan Harris, who's not as big a point guard.
Well, it does create a little curiosity there, because you've got a bigger guy who can defend the point in Kevin McCullough. I mean, you can trust McCullough to handle that situation, but that does then put you in a situation where, okay, where does Harris end up? Or do you say we trust Harris enough to put him on a bigger guy? I do think that is a fascinating matchup. If he's not able to go, I like the KU defensive setup a lot better. I've been thinking since this season began, and I will say KU has impressed me more than I thought down low over the last couple of games because KJ Adams has been playing out of his mind recently. I know he was great in that very favorable matchup against Missouri, but he has been playing in general better than I thought he would be to this point of the season. Can you slow down Trace Jackson Davis? Because he is Indiana's best player. He is a big who can score. I mentioned before the season, I thought he was one of the more overrated players in college basketball. I didn't think he deserved an All-American honor, a preseason All-American honor. Then he just was destroying guys early in the season, and I thought, okay, that's fine. I was wrong. I can live with that. Happened before, will happen again. But outside of him, I just don't think there's enough firepower for Indiana. Even if they are a little bit healthier on Saturday, I don't think they have quite the firepower offensively to keep up with the main 3 to 4 scoring options that KU has.
They are going to try and pound it down low.
Yep.
Like when I have seen them play, I watched them play North Carolina. I watched them in the tournament last year when they beat Wyoming.
Yep.
So, I'm not going to pretend I've watched every minute of Indiana basketball, but when I have watched them play this year, they've got a bit of an old school feel to them. They will play Jackson Davis back to the basket and get it to him and let him try and post you up.
Which with Mike Woodson as the head coach makes sense.
Yeah, an old school guy. Played in the 80s.
Still wears a suit on the sideline.
Yeah.
That's a point in Indiana's favor. I know I love Bill Self's quarter zip game, but I got to be honest. I kind of miss the suits on the sideline. It's a good look.
So I do think that if they're able to slow the game down and be really efficient on offense, that's their best hope. This will be a big test for KJ Adams as a post defender because he is going to be guarding somebody who's bigger than him and maybe a little bit more experienced and a little stronger. He's going to have to hold his own. Or Kansas is going to have to play well in a bigger lineup, which we haven't seen them do for stretches. This is the kind of team that gives them problems. And this, to me, is going to feel a lot more like the Wisconsin game or the Tennessee game than the Missouri game felt. I think Indiana is built to really give KU some problems matchup-wise. That being said, I think Hood Schifino's injury and absence, I would be a little bit surprised. I know they say optimism is growing. I just read it from 24/7 Sports. Jeff Rabjohns is very connected and knows this stuff. So I'm not doubting his report, but at the same time, it would be very surprising if his first day back at practice was Thursday. They played him particularly extended minutes on Saturday. So I don't think either way he's going to have a huge impact on Saturday's game if he has any impact at all. And so I think that will result in their offense not quite being able to be at ramming speed. Kansas should be able to be a more efficient offensive team over the course of 60 minutes. That and being at home, an early tip, I think should see them through.
You are going to need quality minutes, maybe not a ton of them, but you are going to need quality minutes from both Uday and Ejiofor in this game, or at least one of them, because if Adams gets in foul trouble, he's got a big task ahead of him. I like KJ defensively. I like the little bit of spark he's added to his offensive game, but you're in all likelihood going to need some time either just to rest KJ or because he gets in foul trouble. You're going to have to go to one of the two young big men at some point. Here is how much those two have played pretty much all season. So Uday started the year, the first 3 games of the year, Omaha, North Dakota State, Duke. He played double-figure minutes in each of those games, 14, 12, and 13. Since then, he's played double-figure minutes in 1 game. That was against Seton Hall, which was a blowout. And he's pretty good. It was 4 for 4 from the floor, had 10 points. But other than that, NC State, 9 minutes. Tennessee, 7 minutes. Even against Missouri, he only saw the floor for 3 minutes. Although, again, KJ Adams was playing really well. Ejiofor has played even less. He barely played those first 2 games. Did get 10 minutes against Duke. 5 against North Carolina State, 2 against Tennessee. He played just 8 minutes against Seton Hall. He's even a little further back than Uday is. He's also a little bit smaller than Uday is. Now, Ejiofor is a good rebounder. He's actually a very efficient rebounder for how little he has played this year. But you've got to ask at least one of those guys, hey, you need to be able to give probably 10-plus decent minutes. You've got 5 fouls to burn. Just don't get killed by Jackson Davis. I think if KU slows him down, KU is going to win this game. I haven't seen a spread of
5.5.
5.5. That's probably fair. I would have thought maybe even a little bit smaller, but I think that's probably a fair number.
Yeah, it feels like the path for Indiana to win is a monster game from Jackson Davis. And barring that, there's a lot more routes for Kansas to win this game than there are for Indiana to win.
I don't know that Indiana will be able to. If KU can score the ball relatively efficiently, so that means you're getting double digits from Dick, a couple 3-pointers. You're getting Jalen Wilson being senior year, well, I guess technically a junior. Jalen Wilson still. You get some of those energy minutes from Yesufu and Pettiford off the bench. I think KU's got too much firepower. It's just a matter of slowing down Indiana's best player. Hell, you might have to double him at some points. They might have to go old, the way teams used to guard Doak. Like, hey, ball's thrown down low, you bring the double. Even if it's your second weakest defender along with Adams, you just cannot let that guy beat you. And I think that's going to be the difference. I will take KU to win that game. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a lot of fun, though. Quick note on K-State versus Nebraska. Nebraska, not good, but probably better than we thought they would be. They're top 80 in KenPom, at least as of last night. They were in the top 80 in KenPom. They're 6-5 on the year. Again, they're playing better. They're still not good. I think in this game, as long as K-State is able to score decently well, they should be fine. Nebraska, at least according to the KenPom metrics, better defensively than offensively. K-State, the same thing, but their defense is very good and their offense is okay. Nebraska is very mediocre on offense and okay defensively. As long as K-State can find a couple guys to score, Keontae Johnson +1, I think K-State should be fine.
Yeah, that's kind of where they're at, I think, on a nightly basis, that they can be competitive and beat inferior teams as long as they have a Robin to Keontae Johnson's Batman. It's a big help to have the best player on the floor each game, and I think K-State will have that on Saturday against Keontae Johnson. That's why I kind of give them an edge. Haven't seen a spread for this one, but do think that Kansas State should be able to get out of Kansas City as a winner. And then if they take care of their business against Radford, then they would go into Big 12 play with only one loss. And I mean, I know you and I both don't necessarily expect Kansas State to dance, but if they're going to, this is a game they have to win.
I would agree with that. They should be able to handle Radford, who is currently ranked 233rd in the country.
That doesn't sound very rad to me.
No, that's quite bad.
More like Badford.
That is not the worst team, though, currently ranked that K-State has played this year.
Well, I'm sure. What was the SWAC team they played? Was it Prairie View?
They did play Prairie View. In fact, there are 2, if not 3 teams that are worse. Yes, Incarnate Word is in the bottom 10 in the entire country.
Ah, yes, Incarnate Word.
Prairie View is in the 260s. Cal is 258.
Oh, that's right.
They are 0-11.
Well, really quick from the Big O Tires text line, we have a text from 75 that says, wow, no faith in K-State dancing. I think before the season started,
yeah,
and right now, that meter has gone up. I would say for me, I won't speak for you, but I feel better about their chances to do it now than I did when the season began. They're going to have to win at least 7 conference games. At least 7, if not 8.
Would you count the I know it doesn't count as a conference game, but would they get an extra bump if they win their SEC game?
And
do you think that would help?
That's against Ole Miss, right?
Is it Ole Miss again this year? I think it might be.
Ole Miss
no, are they taking on
it Georgia or
I think they have Florida. Yeah, they have Florida.
Oh, they have Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would that help? Like if they went 6-12, but you got that Florida win midseason, would that help?
Yeah, probably. Okay. But
I mean, 6-12 is hard to get in. I'm not saying
I think they need to go at least 7-11 in conference play to really have a chance, and that feels more doable today. I had strong doubts about how this team would come together. They have come together and exceeded my expectations to this point. I would still say it is more likely a no than a yes because it's hard to make the tournament. And I think there are 5 teams really clearly better than them in the Big 12 right now, and their non-conference schedule is not going to do them a ton of favors.
No.
So they're not going to get a big benefit of the doubt because the non-conference has been pretty weak. That's just the schedule Jerome Tang inherited. But it's certainly possible. And I'll say it is much more possible, I think, now than I felt like it was before the season tipped off.
K-State's non-conference schedule, and again, I'm just referencing Ken Pomeroy here, 254th in the country. That's not a plus when it comes down to. I will say this for what I think about K-State getting to the tournament. I said going into the year, best case scenario was bubble team, that they had a chance If everything went right, they would be solidly on the bubble. I would say my opinion has changed to their ceiling is better than that. I think they could be like a solid 7 if everything goes well. That'd be a great year. Like that.
Yeah.
I don't want that to sound disrespectful. That would be an incredible year for this program coming off of what it was less than 12 months ago.
And throwing essentially a brand new team together on the spot.
Yeah, a completely new team, save for 2 players, one of whom doesn't even play at this point. So I think their ceiling has raised to solidly in with a low power conference seed. I still think the most likely way they get in is probably being one of the teams picked off the bubble. But I think they've got a real chance. I really do. I mean, they've got talent. We've got another texter who says, I'm not confident enough to lay money on K-State. I think that's fair too.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a tough conference, man. It is a tough conference. Real quick, want to get to this before we get to a break and what is wrong with you. 2 bowl games already going on today. We're in the third quarter of the Cure Bowl. UTSA leads Troy by 5. Surprisingly low scoring in that game. We also had the Bahamas Bowl already. That was a banger today. UAB beat Miami, Ohio. We've got 6 bowl games tomorrow. I think we're going to keep track of all of our picks for these bowl games. And not like for anything, but I want to see how well we can do with all these. 6 bowl games coming up tomorrow. Let's go rapid fire through them, chronological order. The Fenway Bowl. Cincinnati versus Louisville. Louisville favored by 1.5.
Vengeance game for Louisville, who lost their coach to Cincinnati. I think they're going to take out their frustrations on Scott Satterfield, on the poor Bearcats, who've had a lot of opt-outs in a disappointing year. I like Louisville with the big emotional edge, -1.5.
I like Louisville, too. I think Louisville players are happy they have a new coach. I don't think they liked Scott Satterfield all that much.
Which I think means they're going to
be feeling good.
Show out, yeah.
I'm with you. I've got Louisville in that one. Las Vegas Bowl, Florida versus Oregon State. The Beavs, 10.5-point favorites.
I think that's too many points for Oregon State to be favored. They don't score a ton unless they run the ball. Florida's got that SEC talent advantage even without Anthony Richardson and some other stars. I think they will cover, but I think Oregon State wins.
I think Florida is going to cover that one, too. 10.5 points is a lot for a bowl game. Florida does have a lot of talent still. I like Billy Napier as a coach. Not that I don't like what Oregon State has done, but
they'll play hard for Billy Napier. They've been doing it all year.
The only thing that would allow Oregon State to cover is if Florida literally does not tackle, because Oregon State can only run. They really can't throw the ball. Kirk Herbstreit and Pat McAfee on the broadcast for that one, by the way.
Fun.
Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Yes, really, the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Washington State versus Fresno State. Fresno State is favored by 4, and I am sorry to my wife, who I love so much. I'm picking against your school. It's my last chance to bet on Jake Hayner. I'm not going to pass that up.
You and me both. Fresno State -4. Mr. Late Night, Jake Hayner with a big game.
Lending Tree Bowl. Come on, get a better name. Southern Miss favored by 6.5 over America's favorite side dish, rice.
I don't know anything about these teams. This might be the bowl game I know the least about going into it.
I know Rice has a McCaffrey. I will take Rice.
I know Southern Miss has a Frank Gore.
Is he still around, Frank Gore Jr.?
I think he is.
Oh, how about that? All right, so first head-to-head one. New Mexico Bowl, BYU, 4-point dog against SMU. No starting quarterback for BYU, Jaron Hall. However, SMU's also got a bunch of dudes out.
Yeah, I think I like SMU here to score a bunch of points. BYU's just had a disappointing year, and I think they're kind of looking toward the finish line a little bit. I think SMU finishes strong with a win.
Let's just get to the Big 12 kind of energy. I will take BYU. I just don't trust SMU. Haven't really all year. Final one, Frisco Bowl, North Texas. They just fired their head coach. They're taking on Boise State. Broncos favored by 10.5.
Boise State had a really strong finish to their season. If I were going to bet this one, I bet the over. I think it's at 52.5. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game.
I like that.
But Boise State, I will lay the points with Boise State. I think the Broncos dominate.
Me too. I think Boise State's got a great position for that one. Those are our rapid-fire bowl picks. We got to take a break. What is wrong with you's next on 580 Sports Talk. Time for What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you. Let's get to this real quick. Our current winner is the gentleman, the 67-year-old man in Japan who called the local police 2,060 times in 9 days to call them tax thieves and to essentially tell them he hated them. And he was eventually apprehended by said police for their harassing phone calls. Dan, I will let you go first here on this Feel Good Friday.
All right. Now, I feel like we don't always need to do disclaimers on our What Is Wrong With You stories. I feel like people know when we talk about an irresponsible gun owner, we are talking about that irresponsible gun owner and not gun owners. Likewise, we are talking about a crooked or a criminal acting police officer. We are talking about that police officer and not talking about the profession of policing as a whole. I use the disclaimer this time because we have both in this story. We go to Adair, Iowa, and meet Chief of Police Bradley Wendt, who's been indicted on charges of making false statements to the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, to obtain numerous machine guns over a 4-year period on behalf of the Adair Police Department. Prosecutors say Wendt sought to purchase or demonstrate approximately 90 machine guns over a 4-year period. Some of the weapons were used for public machine gun shoots, where Wendt and his partner, Robert Williams, charged customers money to be able to fire the weapons. Wendt used his position as police chief to obtain 10 machine guns for the official use of the police department, but later resold at least 6 of those weapons for significant profit. He obtained 13 guns for his gun store, BW Outfitters, under the pretense they were to be used as demonstration models for future purchase by the department. A further 10 weapons were obtained in the same manner for Williams Contracting, a federally licensed firearms dealer business owned by Williams. The indictment describes the firearms as fully automatic weapons not legally available to the public, including an M60 machine gun, which Wendt had mounted on his personally owned Humvee. Wendt also sought repeatedly to obtain for the department a rotary M134 minigun, which is usually mounted on military helicopters.
Oh.
The punchline is Bradley Wendt was chief of police of Adair, Iowa, a town of 800 residents, with a police force of no more, typically, than 4 people. And he tried to obtain 90 machine guns, an M60 for his own use, and a helicopter gun. The indictment notes, by the way, that the Adair Police Department does not own a helicopter. He's being charged with 18 counts of making a false statement to the ATF and 1 for unlawful possession of a machine gun. Prosecutors are also seeking forfeiture of at least 35 machine guns involved in the case.
Seems like overkill. I think that's fair to say. Probably don't need that much weaponry for your 3-person police department.
Yes, exactly. It feels like he took this job so he could enrich his own stockpile.
Oh my God. That's absurd. My story is going to take us to Gainesville, Florida. This is a very Gators story. A college student is behind bars after 2 residents who did not know him found him naked in their apartment. On Monday, Gainesville police officers arrested Alberto Araya, a 19-year-old, on charges of burglary and multiple counts of property damage. Officers say that at about 6 p.m., he was recorded on security footage damaging the exit sign at the Standard Apartments on West University Avenue while wearing only green shorts, no shirt or shoes. He then entered an apartment of people he didn't know. When the 2 residents returned home, they found Araya standing completely naked in their living room. The residents immediately left. Araya left about 15 minutes later, still fully nude. Inside the apartment, he had caused hundreds of dollars worth of damage. Araya claimed, once he was eventually arrested, that he was inside the apartment because he believed his wife was in there. He claimed one of the victims was his wife, but was unsure which one. Detectives later determined Araya is not married.
It's the drill tweet. Girls are my wife constantly. That is the piece de resistance of this one.
Yeah, it's my wife. Well, which one? One of them. I'm not sure. Very Florida Gator story there. Who you got for today?
Man, both of these stories are really good. I got to go with the guy who tried to get 90 machine guns and a helicopter gun for the police department of a town of 800 people.
I would agree with that. Although I'm going to give the weekly win still to our wire-to-wire win to our fellow from Japan. That is a unique twist on the rapidly calling the police story.
Mm-hmm.
He spent 27 hours in 1 week doing nothing but calling the police and insulting them.
Calling the police and insult. He should have been calling the Adair Police Department and calling them tax thieves.
Right? No kidding. That do you vote the same way?
Yes, I do.
That is our weekly winner, wire to wire here in What Is Wrong With You. We've got just 2 weeks left. In fact, we'll find our December champion next week, and then the week after,
Tournament of Champions,
our champion for the year of 2022. Get excited for that. Right now, I'm on my way to Viking Gymnasium for high school hoops tonight. Dan's got you the rest of the way. We'll look ahead to the NFL weekend coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk.
.442 on 580 Sports Talk. It's a solo mission the rest of the way. Yours truly, Dan Lucero, flying the bird. Brendan Dworzinski on his way to Viking Gymnasium, Seaman High School. Should be a good couple of games tonight on our 580 Preps Friday night game of the week. Seaman hosting DeSoto in United Kansas Conference action. Brendan and Larry Latimer will be on the call. We'll throw it out their way around 5:30, though that is, if you remember from Tuesday night, very much subject to change. We'll get it out there roughly 5:30 or so. That's when we'll take 580 Sports Talk and send it off to Viking Gymnasium. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/@sportson580. Subscribe if you haven't already. You can watch the program. This is the segment of the program where I use hand-drawn graphics to let you know when we're on commercial break, because the control room is in the other room across the way. So I am looking at the camera right now. Hi to everybody who is still watching on the stream. You can comment on the stream. And of course, you can hit me up on the Big O Tires text line at 785-272-9429. Week 15 of the NFL season gets started with a Saturday triple header. 3 games tomorrow. Well, I guess it got started last night, technically speaking. 49ers 21, Seahawks 13. As lopsided an 8-point game as you will ever watch. If you were tuned in last night on Amazon Prime Video, the 49ers just beat the Seahawks to sleep. That was an 8-point game. It felt like the 49ers won that game by 30. They are that much better than the Seahawks, and playoff hope starting to slip away for my beloved birds to the Northwest. 49ers, meanwhile, clinched the NFC West. Brock Purdy played pretty well. 2 touchdowns he threw were really well-schemed plays to wide-open receivers. He also threw what should have been an easy interception that Quandre Diggs dropped. So I'm not all the way in on Brock Purdy. Again, he is going to make a bad play at the worst possible time if I know anything about Brock Purdy. So we'll see how that goes for them. But he gutted it out through injury last night, delivered an 8-point win on the road against a halfway decent Seahawks team. So Week 15 started last night. Week 15 keeps rolling on Saturday. A triple header. All games on NFL Network, by the way. So if you're looking for them on Saturday and you can't find them, they're on NFL Network. If you don't get NFL Network, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Other than call your local cable provider or something along those lines, I guess. Indianapolis at Minnesota is the first game. That is the noon kickoff. Minnesota is a 3.5-point favorite. I think that number is too low. Indianapolis stinks. I think Minnesota's going to beat them pretty good, probably at least by a touchdown. The Vikings, I think, coming off of the loss last week, I still think they're much better than the Colts and should win that game at home, no problem. Baltimore is at Cleveland. That is a 3:30 kick, game 2 on Saturday. Cleveland, a 2.5-point favorite at home. It will be Tyler Hundley for Baltimore. I think the Ravens can win that game with their backup quarterback. The Browns have not been spectacular with Deshaun Watson at the helm. The noted sex pest / quarterback has had 2 starts and hasn't played particularly well in either of them. We'll see how he fares against the Ravens defense. The Saturday night game is the best of the bunch. Miami and Buffalo, 7:15 kickoff. Going to be some gnarly weather in Buffalo this weekend. Bills are a 7-point favorite. Given the forecast, the fact that the over-under went up a point since this morning is kind of surprising to me. It's at 44.5. It was at 43.5 earlier today. I don't think Miami's show travels. I've said that many times. I don't think they're a very good road team. They haven't been a very good road team. They were not good at Los Angeles on Sunday Night Football. I don't think they're going to fare a whole lot better at Buffalo. I think this will be a low-scoring game regardless of the weather, but I like Buffalo to pull it out and continue to keep Miami at arm's length, extend their lead, in fact, in the AFC East. Looking to Sunday's games, obviously the Chiefs and the Texans are the early game that you will get to see on CBS. If you get the Topeka Fox affiliate, you will get another early game to watch, Dallas-Jacksonville. If you get Fox 4 out of Kansas City, you will get Patriots-Raiders in the late window on Fox. Everybody gets 2 CBS games. The CBS national game, the Nance Romo game this week, is Cincinnati-Tampa Bay in the late window. That's for your viewing pleasure. The early games, I mentioned Kansas City, Houston, Dallas, Jacksonville. Dallas 4.5-point favorite at Jacksonville. Jags are looking frisky after they dominated Tennessee last week. Dallas coming in on a down note, needing to score late to escape Houston. We'll see what Trevor Lawrence can do against that Dallas defense that had some trouble with the 2-headed monster, and I say monster very loosely, of Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll last week. Atlanta is at New Orleans. I don't have anything to say about that game. New Orleans is a 4-point favorite if you're curious. Detroit at the Jets. No Mike White for the Jets. Doctors have not cleared him to play, so it's going to be Zach Wilson. As a result, the Jets are 1-point underdogs at home against the Lions. The Lions have played great football of late. My question for the Lions, and we'll find out against a good, tough defensive test in the Jets, does the Lions offense travel, or are they a dome show? Are they flat track bullies inside Ford Field? When they go outside in December, does it still work for them? I have my doubts. I might lean the Jets in this one, or might have much more strongly if I thought it was going to be Mike White. But knowing that it's Zach Wilson, the one number I do love is under 43.5. I really like the under in that game. Philadelphia's at Chicago. Eagles are 9-point favorites. No big surprise there. Carolina hosts Pittsburgh. Panthers 3-point favorites. Not sure who Pittsburgh's going to play at quarterback. Kenny Pickett is going to be doubtful on the injury report going into Sunday. They'll announce their starter on Sunday. Doesn't look like it'll be Pickett. It'll be either Mitchell Trubisky or Mason Rudolph if Pickett doesn't go. That is a really dire watch. Steelers-Panthers. There are some low over-unders this week. That one's at 37.5. That's the kind of game you're probably going to get. Two pretty good defenses. Carolina, because they've been kind of bummy and have had a bad quarterback situation and fired their coach. Nobody's really noticed Carolina this year or watched them play much, but their defense is legit. So I do think that's going to be a pretty low-scoring game. Getting into the afternoon window, I mentioned if you have Fox 4 as your Kansas City affiliate, you'll get, or your Fox affiliate in Kansas City, you will get Patriots Raiders. The Raiders are 1.5 favorites. The Hoodie's not going to beat Belichick, is he? Belichick's not going to lose to Josh McDaniels. Come on. No way. I like the Patriots to win outright. They're plus 102 on the money line. All lines, of course, from our friends at FanDuel. I just don't see Belichick losing to McDaniels. Even though the Patriots are a very limited team, I got to believe Belichick will have his defense in the right place to handle that Raiders offense. Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, we'll all get to watch that one on CBS. Cincinnati only favored by 3.5 at Tampa Bay. That is the spread that makes me raise my eyebrows the most this week, because Tampa Bay, they've just been dire, and Cincinnati's been on fire. I didn't mean to rhyme there. I guess I did. I would stay away from that spread at all costs, even though I think Cincinnati will probably win. I'd lean pretty heavily towards Cincinnati, but we'll see what the Tampa Bay defense can do. Cincinnati having to go out on the road for a tough offensive matchup. Tennessee at the Chargers. Titans-Chargers. Chargers are 3-point favorites. Titans need a bounce back after their disappointing loss to the Jaguars, trying to keep the Jags at bay as they try and make a charge in that AFC South. Chargers trying to hang in the wild card race. It would be very Chargers of them to lose this game, wouldn't it? And the other late afternoon affair, oh my gosh, it is gross. It is Cardinals-Broncos. No Russell Wilson for Denver. He cleared concussion protocol, but the Broncos decided to hold him out this week anyway, much to Wilson's disappointment, according to head coach Nathaniel Hackett. But it will be Brett Rippon and Colt McCoy as the starting quarterbacks. You will be shocked to learn that this is the lowest total posted by FanDuel this week, 36.5. Am I betting the under for the 8th consecutive week in the 580 Sports Talk Pick'em contest? Yes. Yes, I am. I am on that under. Denver's a 1.5 favorite. I kind of think the Broncos will win, even though they were 3-point favorites this morning, and that number's been cut in half since the announcement that Wilson won't play. The late game, we have text from the 75 that just says barf. I think that's in reference to Broncos Cardinals. And I couldn't agree more. Great text. 10 out of 10. No notes. The night game, Giants Commanders. Commanders are 4.5-point favorites. I don't find this game interesting, but I find this interesting. Did you know that the NFL, of the 4 major sports leagues in North America, the NFL has the fewest number of teams with 3 or more syllable nicknames? It's true. Only 4 teams in the NFL have a nickname or a mascot that is more than or 3 or more syllables. The 49ers, the Patriots, the Buccaneers, and the Commanders. The NBA has 6 3-syllable team names: Warriors, 76ers, Timberwolves, Cavaliers, Pelicans, Trailblazers. Major League Baseball has 7: the Orioles, Guardians, Nationals, Diamondbacks, Athletics, and Mariners. And the NHL has 10 3 or more syllable names: Canadians, Senators, Hurricanes, Avalanche, Blue Jackets, Maple Leafs, Islanders, Coyotes, Predators, and Golden Knights. Now, most of those teams have an accepted shortening, a shorthand for the nickname that gets it down to 2 syllables, right? Like the Buccaneers, we used to call them the Bucks. The Timberwolves are the T-Wolves, or just the Wolves. The Cavaliers are the Cavs. The Nationals are the Nats. The Athletics are the A's. The Diamondbacks are the D-backs. The Senators in hockey, they're the Sens. The Avalanche, Stanley Cup champions, if you didn't know. I'll show the video. My Stanley Cup champions Tumblr here. The Avs, the Predators are the Preds, the Coyotes are the Yotes. We have an accepted shortening. Even the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors, people call them the Dubs. That's relatively new, but it works. The W's, the Dubs, that works for me. There's only 3 of those teams, 3 of the 27 in major sports that don't have an accepted shortening of their nickname. The Pelicans, New Orleans Pelicans. I've never heard them called the Peas or the Cans. The Guardians, which are brand new. I don't know how well Guards works. And then the Commanders are one. And I bring all that up to say, number one, this is more fun to me than talking about the actual matchup. And number two, I vote we call the Commanders the Manders. It's better than commies, isn't it? Anyhow, that's your look at week 15 of the NFL. And if you're curious about any of those spreads or totals I just read off, now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's free bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just sign up with my promo code Lucero. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line to point spreads to player props. Live betting gives you updated odds on games that have already started. And it's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So sign up today with my promo code Lucero for your no-sweat first bet. That's promo code LUCERO. Make every moment more this season with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. Refund issued is non-withdrawable free bets. It expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com. From the 316, that's useless information I'll never need to know again. Right. It's more fun than trying to figure out what Taylor Heineke and Daniel Jones are going to do on Sunday night, though, isn't it? Those two teams tied 2 weeks ago. It's just not a fun game to talk about. I'd rather talk about calling the Commanders the Manders. I think that's a winner. I'm going to try it on. Just going to see how it works. I'm going to bring it back on Monday. We'll see what Brendan thinks about it. Coming over the 5 o'clock hour, your Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, then a final word before high school hoops. This is 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day, final hour of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero here with you, solo dolo for the final however long we go in this 5 o'clock hour. Brendan Dworzinski and Larry Latimer are ready to rock at Seaman High School Viking Gymnasium for tonight's 580 Preps Friday night game of the week. Seaman taking on DeSoto in a pair of United Kansas Conference games. Should be two really good games tonight. We'll throw you out there for coverage as soon as the guys are ready for it, which may be soon, which means we don't have a lot of time to waste. We got to get into our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. They are sponsored by Blue Dot of Kansas, the HVAC experts. Go to their website, blue.kansas.com, and find out what they can do for you to make your living quarters more comfortable, perhaps warmer, as it's going to get cold here through the weekend and into next week. Blue.kansas.com. Our first Blue Dot of Kansas headline today is the participation report and injury report for Chiefs Texans coming up on Sunday at NRG Stadium in Houston. Two players are questionable for the Chiefs. One of them is not a surprise. Kadarius Toney was limited throughout the week with a hamstring injury, and he is listed as questionable. The other was a surprise. Chris Jones was not on the participation list until today and then fell ill and did not practice. He is listed as questionable for Sunday. Get well soon to Stone Cold Chris Jones. Hopefully he can go for the Chiefs on Sunday, though, frankly, the Chiefs shouldn't need Chris Jones to beat the Texans. Everyone else on the list was a full participant. Najee Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Nick Bolton, Deion Bush, Lucas Niang, Isaiah Pacheco, Justin Reed, Trey Smith, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Watson, Derek Nottie, Patrick Mahomes, all of whom have various maladies. For Mahomes, by the way, it's listed as a right hand injury, but by all accounts, he wasn't wearing anything on his hand this week and didn't seem encumbered throwing the football. He was a full participant throughout the week. Shouldn't be any problems for 15 on Sunday. The Texans, well, bit of a different story for them. Here's who's out for the Texans. RB1, Damian Pierce, out with an ankle. WR1 and 2, Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins, both out. Cooks with a calf, Collins with a foot. So, no big deal. Just your three biggest offensive weapons out for Sunday. Also missing two of your three starting defensive backs. Steven Nelson out with a foot injury. Rookie Derek Stingley Jr. out with a hamstring injury. Utility lineman Kenyon Green out with an ankle injury. Defensive lineman Taylor Stallworth, former Chief, out with a calf injury. Justin McCray, starting guard, questionable with a hamstring. He didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday, but was limited today. Everybody else was a full participant for the Texans, including tackle Laramie Tunsil, then defensive lineman Kurt Heinisch and Roy Lopez, and fullback Troy Hairston. So that is the injury report for the Chiefs and the Texans. Chiefs will be pretty healthy, and the Texans will not. Other NFL injury notes on our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. I mentioned it earlier as we were previewing Week 15. A couple of notable quarterback situations that bear monitoring. No Mike White for the New York Jets. Despite White wanting to play after suffering a rib injury last Sunday, doctors did not clear White to play, so it'll be Zach Wilson who gets the nod for the Jets against the Detroit Lions. Russell Wilson will not start for the Denver Broncos. He cleared concussion protocol this week, but the Broncos decided to hold him out for Sunday against Arizona as a precautionary measure. The Steelers will not say who their quarterback will be on Sunday against the Panthers. Kenny Pickett, after suffering his second concussion of the season, is doubtful. Other notable injuries, 4 starters out for the Titans against the Chargers, including wide receiver Treylon Burks. Also out for the game, running back Dontrell Hilliard, defensive lineman Danico Autry, cornerback Christian Fulton, and safety Amani Hooker. So that's a notable injury report for the Titans in a game they've got to have against a Chargers team that also needs the win. Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be without stud defensive tackle Vita Vea for Sunday's game against the Bengals. The Bengals feel good, those are the words of Zach Taylor, their head coach, about the status of wide receivers Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Higgins is dealing with a hamstring. Boyd dislocated a finger on the first play of Week 14's game against Cleveland, but Taylor thinks both Boyd and Higgins will be good to go. Also, Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Tyler Lockett broke a finger last night in Seattle's 21-13 loss to the 49ers. He will have surgery to repair that broken bone, and he hopes to return at some point before the end of the regular season. A source told ESPN that Lockett could miss as few as one game. Moving on from the NFL to college football in our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. This may be the biggest college football story of the day. Alabama is all in for the Sugar Bowl, or at least their two top NFL draft prospects are. Quarterback Bryce Young and defensive end/linebacker Will Anderson Jr. will both play for the Crimson Tide when they take on Kansas State on New Year's Eve in the All-State Sugar Bowl. Both Anderson and Young are expected to declare for the NFL draft. It is very rare for projected top 5 picks to suit up for non-playoff games anymore. I don't necessarily... I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. I would not have been shocked if Anderson and Young did not play. I think it's great for them. If they want to play, they should play if that's what they feel like doing, but nobody should begrudge them if they don't want to play. I'm not one of those people that thinks it's the downfall of Western civilization that people don't want to play in the bowl games anymore. I really don't believe that, but it makes it all the more interesting and all the more surprising that both Anderson and Young are going to play. In fact, it's been reported that Alabama is not expected to have any players opt out for the Sugar Bowl. So Kansas State will get Alabama on Saturday or on that Saturday on New Year's Eve. Not a neutered version of the Crimson Tide. They won't see Jaden Milroe at quarterback. Will Howard's going to have to deal with arguably the top pass rusher in the country. If you want Kansas State to be tested, if you believe that this Kansas State team's as good as anybody not named Georgia or Michigan in the country, and for the record, I do believe that. I do believe they're that good. Then this should be exciting for you. You want to get Alabama at full strength. So either way, if you beat Alabama, great. You beat Alabama. That's awesome. If you don't beat Alabama, well, you measured yourself against the best they had to offer. And that in turn reveals how far you need to go. What you need to do to be the best version of the program that you can be in Manhattan. So I'm glad for Kansas State that they get this opportunity. I'm glad for people who are making the trip to New Orleans that they're going to see the best version of Alabama that there is, with Bryce Young running the show on offense, with Will Anderson Jr. coming off the edge. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a great test for Kansas State. A text in on the Big O Tires text line from the 316. Definitely want Alabama at full strength because one way or the other, K-State's going to beat them. A confident Cat fan from the 316 texting in on the Big O Tires text line. Like to see that. Like the confidence. Continuing our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, another note from the world of college football. Nebraska has officially cut ties with the man who was their interim head coach after the firing of Scott Frost in the 2022 season. Mickey Joseph was arrested and charged with felony assault on December 1st, assault by strangulation or suffocation. He stands accused of putting his hands around a woman's throat, pulling her hair, and punching her during a domestic dispute that occurred on November 30th. The athletic department announced today that Joseph is no longer a part of the Cornhusker program and will have no additional comment. Just a disgusting story. Don't hit or pull hair, or definitely don't strangle women. And this then isn't your fate. Mickey Joseph, I think, did a good job in a tough situation there in Nebraska. He was somebody who had a lot of respect and regard within not just the program, but I think among Nebraska fans. And he has made what may very well end up being a career-ending mistake. And he has nobody to blame for that but himself. Let's go to baseball. Our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines continue on the diamond. Some more hot stove news. A few signings to tell you about. One broke late last night. There's been a lot of happenings like right when I'm ready to go to bed. I don't love that because I like when there are big signings. I like when teams add star players or all-star caliber players. Like, I like to get excited about that, unless it's a division rival of my favorite team, in which case I don't love it so much. But I wish they would happen like in the middle of the day and not at night, right when I'm about to go to bed. But Carlos Rodon left-handed pitcher going to the New York Yankees. 6 years, $162 million on that deal. Set career highs in innings pitched and strikeouts last season. Also earlier today, Andrew Benintendi joins the Chicago White Sox. The former Royal signing a 5-year, $75 million contract to go to the South Side. And the Minnesota Twins have agreed to a 1-year, $11 million deal with Joey Gallo, formerly of the Rangers and Dodgers, and also Yankees. We'll take a short break now. That's going to wrap up our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Check them out online at bluedotkansas.com. The final word is next here on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up, walking off this edition of 580 Sports Talk, bringing it to an early close because of high school hoops. And we're going to get out to that in just a little bit. Seaman and DeSoto, our 580 Sport or 580 Preps Friday night game of the week. Final word for me, Chiefs. I am begging you from my soul. They don't all have to be interesting. A blowout would suit, I think, everyone just fine. Stomp on the necks of the worst team in the NFL and let us get on with our Sunday. Perhaps let us turn the TV off in the third quarter and attend to, I don't know, wrapping Christmas presents or whatever it is we got to do. But the Chiefs, if you want to talk big talk about being champions and playing 60 minutes of football, go play 45 minutes of great football and take the last 15 off. That should be attainable on Sunday. High school basketball is next. For Brendan Dworzinski, I'm Dan Lucero. Thank you so much for listening today and throughout the week to 580 Sports Talk.